Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
And welcome everyone to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm so glad that you could join us today. We have another wonderful show for you. So whether you're listening on your smartphone, your computer, or the local radio, I'm glad that you tuned in. You can actually watch us stream live on caregiversolutions.info or locally here in Boca Raton on the local 1470 AM. And I'm so glad that you're here. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida. First, I'd like to hope and wish that everyone survived Hurricane Matthew as it hit the United States and went up through the East Coast. I know that it was terrible, a lot of devastation. And just know that, everyone is concerned, and we hope that the caregivers are prepared and have weathered it okay. I know there's been some tragedies, and, it's very heartfelt. So we always want to be prepared for anything as caregivers, but especially for anybody in that traffic of the Hurricane Matthew. We want to just, tell you that our thoughts and prayers are with you. We are talking today about a wonderful program, not only about daycare centers specifically for people with memory loss, but about all of the feelings that caregivers experience when they're going through the trials and tribulations of being a caregiver. Caregiving is absolutely one of the hardest things that a person will have to do in their lifetime. It's something that you're usually not really prepared for. It's thrust upon you, sometimes suddenly and without any warning. And so that's why this show was actually created for caregivers who need another resource to gain information, insight, and advice from professionals in the field that deal with dementia, that deal with geriatrics, that are professionals, either elder law attorneys, social workers, geriatric care managers, physicians. We bring the experts to you. We ask the questions and you get the answers. Sometimes we even have actual caregivers on the program. And I love that because for a caregiver, no one knows what you're going through better than a caregiver who's actually walking or have walked in your shoes. And so to hear it from a caregiver, what they've been through, the path that they've been on, it's really something that you can identify with, and perhaps their path is going to be different than your path, but you do have that camaraderie with another fellow caregiver. And so I hope that you continue to watch and listen for all the information that you can glean to be a better caregiver, a less stressed out caregiver, and get all the information. One of the things that we want to give you as a caregiver is a free book. Now, I know it's hard to find time to read a book as a caregiver, but it's a great resource for you. It's hard for caregivers to get out. It's hard sometimes for caregivers to go to support groups. But a book is really great. So if you have a few minutes in your caregiving day and you'd like to read and learn, one of the best books out there is called The 36-Hour Day. This was written by Dr. Peter Rabins. It's been revised many times, which means it's a very popular book, and it continues to be updated with new information and tips on caregiving. Arden Courts is our national sponsor, making this show possible, and Arden Courts is a leader in the field of memory care for people that don't need a nursing home, but maybe shouldn't be at home anymore or can't be at home anymore. Arden Courts would like to offer you, the caregiver, this free book. All you have to do is call the toll-free number. That number is 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410. Give Arden Courts a call. Tell them that you heard about this free offer on the Caregiver Solutions radio program, and they will be happy to send a book right out to you. So you'll have one right on your kitchen shelf or your kitchen counter and can refer to it when you need that. If you have a friend or a neighbor that could use this, let them know about it too. We'd be happy to help them also. So today we have a wonderful program, and I'm very happy to be able to introduce to you my special guest today. With me today, we have Barbara Curtis and we have Lyda Carr. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited that you're here. The show is something that caregivers reach out to us for information, and you're here because you are truly experts in the field of caregiving, of dementia, and all that goes with it. So you both are from the Lewis and Ann Green Memory Care Center at FAU, which is Florida Atlantic University, right here in Boca Raton, Florida, and you do quite a bit different jobs. So I want to explore with you today your different capacities that you fulfill at the center, what you do, how you do it, and all the information that you can give to our audience because you truly live it every single day. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Barbara, I'd like to start with you. You're the day manager, the daycare manager at the center. And again, this is specialized, right?
Yes,
So that means that it's only for people with memory loss.
that's correct.
So can you explain to people that might not be aware that there are specialized centers for people with memory loss as opposed to maybe a regular center for seniors, and why they're different and why they're so important that they are different?
Yeah, well, in the long-term care continuum, there are a variety of services, as you're well aware of. So in elderly service needs, people can be independent in different levels and have different physical and medical and health and mental and cognitive issues. They're all very individualized. So our specific center is specialized for people with mild to moderate memory problems. I happen to be part of Florida Adult Day Services Association. There are 281 adult daycares in the state of Florida, and the needs of each person is different, and the services provided at all those centers are different as well. So we are focusing on the cognitive needs of someone, the social interaction that is important for them, the stimulation that helps them improve their abilities and have a better quality of life and have a meaningful experience. But all of the people in our program have memory loss, where others might have more of a physical model program, a medical model program. They're all different.
And there's even regular senior centers for people that really just need socialization time to actually meet with their peers.
Right, and that's another part of the continuum where an adult daycare is a structured program. Everything is supervised and in a safe environment and within guidelines that are regulated. A senior center is a more drop-in, more individualized, free-flowing program. They might have a day center tied to them, as some centers in the area do. And just as you know, with residential facilities, some are dementia-specific and some are general population. So no matter what your needs are in the community, there's somebody out there providing it, and people like Marcia and myself and Lyda are fairly well aware of what's in the communities. I've had 30 years experience here, and all of us can help you find what you're in need of if it's not our particular center.
Right, and that's what we want to do today, is to make people aware of the different options and the differences between different care options, whether it's care at a daycare center, of course at a dementia-assisted living like Arden Courts, and help people through not only finding one, knowing what they're about, but how they go about choosing one too. So we're going to explore lots of those kinds of options, and we're also going to get into the nitty-gritty of the heart and the head that sometimes battle each other, and that's where Lyda comes in. Hi, Lyda.
Hi there.
Thank you for being here today with us. You are a social worker.
Correct.
And your title at the center is the Group and Education Facilitator.
Right.
Okay, so what does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, we offer several different support groups for caregivers on the clinical side of the Memory and Wellness Center. So some of these support groups that we offer, for instance, we have an adult children support group. We also have a couple support group. We offer 2 different support groups that are for, typically it's the spouse or partner that is the caregiver. So I am the facilitator of the couple support group. And in addition to that, I offer some educational programs. One is called Mindset, which I'd love to talk about a little bit more later on, and program development for different educational programs. We're in the process of rolling out 2 new programs that are very exciting. We're working on those.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So your roles are very different, although you work in the same facility, the same daycare center. One is dealing directly with the care of the clients, and Barbara oversees that. And then you're dealing more with the caregivers and educating them and helping them through all the emotions that come with being a caregiver. So this is a great team. We have the best of everything right here. So I love it. I love it. We are going to take our first quick commercial break. Now that you know I've set you up, you're going to hear some great stuff. We're going to go to quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from Lyda and Barbara. So I'll be right back.
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts. Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know, we understand, we can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to Caregiver Solutions Info. I am with my wonderful guests today, Barbara Curtis and Lyda Carr, and they are from the Lewis and Ann Green Memory and Wellness Center right here in Boca Raton, Florida. And thank you again, ladies, for coming, because this is such an important topic because it's options for caregivers. And Barbara, since you're the day manager, the day center manager, you've been there a long time, I think about 10 years.
Right.
And so you help the caregivers initially go through that process of transitioning their loved one into a center. And in your experience, is it hard for a caregiver to give up their loved one to go to a day center during the day, and why would that be?
Many times it is. A lot of the caregivers that come to us are looking for an option to give their loved ones stimulation and social opportunities and to provide them with a break and a viable solution that they feel confident with. But a lot of times they've been asked to come by their physician or their family members who say, gee, you really need a break, and, mom or dad needs some kind of stimulation. So a lot of times they're coming not at it wasn't their idea, but they're coming in the door and they have a bit of a block about it. And I try to understand that, but a lot of times they tell me, I've been taking care of this person for so long, no one else can possibly do it like I do. And I said, well, no, but we're going to do our best to help you, and trying to help them understand the importance of that loved one being out with peers that relate to them, because a lot of the people find that they've become isolated, they've lost contact with the family and friends that maybe they used to do things with, and because of the dementia that their loved one has, they might not fit into the same social circle. So this is a way for them to find an acceptance for the person that needs that interaction, but then they find the services through the social work department for the family that also needs the support.
Right, and there are lots of reasons why a person would want their loved one to go to a day center, and you mentioned several of them, the socialization with their peers, of other people that they can relate to, right? Because a lot of times, like you said, their neighbors or their friends they've had for many years kind of disappear when dementia comes on to the scene, because they either don't understand it, or they're afraid of it, or they don't know how to deal with it. And so people do become isolated, and, it's very important to keep that social interaction going, and that's a wonderful way to do it.
Right, and the socialization is a very big component of any program that people go to in the community. We find, you want to remain in your home as independent as long as you can, and you just have to find what works for you to allow you to do that. So this allows the family members to deal with other family members who are going through the same things that can relate to the same way. And then a lot of the families have told me, it's funny you say some of the reasons why. They'll come in the door, and the first time they leave them, they feel like it's taking the children to school the first day.
Yeah, their baby, they're giving up to death.
And and then they'll come in the door, and their loved one may not be sure about the program. They may feel that they've been dropped off, no one's coming back for them, and then they're nervous the first couple times, and then they get to a point where they come in the door, and their loved one literally just goes in the back to go to the activities and says bye, and then they're sad, but it's a happy kind of a sad.
It's kind of a bittersweet.
It is.
And I hear from caregivers the same thing when someone's moving into Arden Courts, which is dementia-specific assisted living. They are going through a transition process, just like they go through a transition process of any new environment, whether it's the day center, whether it's assisted living. But it's bittersweet almost, because when a caregiver sees their loved one doing well and they're thriving and they're having a good time, it's almost like for the caregiver, well, I'm glad that they're doing that, but I'm sad because they don't miss me so much anymore. Do you find that too?
I do, and one of the things, talking about transition, a lot of times people are looking to maybe thinking about assisted living. They're getting to that point, and sometimes I tell them this is a good stepping stone for them, because they've really never left each other's side. Many times we're dealing with people that have been married for 50 and 60 years, and they've done everything together, and so they might be able to have home care, but when it comes to thinking about moving into a facility, they're not ready for that. But it is kind of bittersweet for them. They do feel, I'm happy that my loved one is enjoying the program. In fact, being part of the university is a unique thing. We are part of the university, as you mentioned, Florida Atlantic University, and we're under the auspices of the Christine E. Lynn College of Nursing. And a lot of the research they're doing is based on aging and memory issues, because that's such a hot topic. And we had one where one of the researchers was looking at the family dynamics from the time a person came to me, and then after they left us, and they measured charts of the families that came to us, and they were showing that during the first year, the people were more focused on the loved one coming to the program, and then after a year and they realize they've accepted it, then they look to themselves and their needs, and they start using the services that LIDA can offer them.
And that's wonderful, because you are such a great resource in the community. being associated with the university, of course, gives you so much more clout and the visibility for the families, and they feel very comfortable coming because of the academics that are going on there, and that all the knowledge that's given to not only the caregivers but to the staff there. So it's a wonderful opportunity, and that's one reason we want to talk about why caregivers might be afraid to take that first step. And it's not easy. I mean, it's a journey, and going along this journey is a step-by-step process. And I want to really stress to the caregivers that it is a process. Things don't happen overnight. No matter what you're doing, it kind of flows, and your caregiving will ebb and flow with the situation at hand. But I totally agree with you, because people that go to a day center that have memory loss do much better transitioning later into a memory care assisted living, because they've been away from the caregiver, they've been with their peers, and they've been doing activities that are very similar in the assisted living situation. So it's almost like the same thing in a different environment that they're used to. And we find that those people do transition better rather than the ones that come maybe straight from home, where it's just so different. And they may take a little bit longer to make that transition.
That separation is very scary for both sides of the family.
Yeah. So then it comes over to Lida. So now we have a caregiver who has gently placed in Barbara's hands their loved one for the day, and they're feeling very guilty. They're scared. They really have a lot of emotions going on, and that's where you come in. Right. As a social worker, you're there to do what?
Well, the big G word. Wow, such a self-inflicted injury, right? Yes. And it's interesting to think, one of the things that I like to share with our caregivers is that in the Tibetan language, the word guilt does not even exist. It's a very Western concept. Yes.
Well, we use it a lot here.
We use it all the time here. We use it all the time here,
the
right?
big G, as you heard, is guilt, in case you didn't figure that out. It's the guilt, and that's probably one of the biggest emotions, I think, that caregivers work through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you help
that go?
How do you help a caregiver work through guilt?
That's a great question. I mean, absolutely, the support groups are wonderful resources that the folks go in there, they get to know each other, they form terrific bonds with each other, and learn. I learn so much from the caregivers, just being a support group facilitator. That's a terrific learning avenue for me. So they share their emotions, what they have been through, obviously, and pick up from that. Work through their guilt that way, or through individual psychotherapy also, if the guilt becomes too much.
Sometimes it can really hit a caregiver so hard that they can't function.
Absolutely.
And then they need other resources, which you can refer them to.
Right.
Yeah.
So the individual psychotherapy is a wonderful resource also to work through not just guilt, but depression, anxiety. Those are two very typical moods that our caregivers, run across and develop, unfortunately, over time. Many of them do.
Yeah, it's really scary for them, and they feel even guilty for having the emotions. Right? I mean, they don't feel so guilty about maybe making decisions for the benefit and welfare of their loved one, but they feel guilty having the emotions of the anger and the fear and all of those anxiety, guilty for feeling guilty, I guess, in a way, right?
And of course, that is one of the terrific things about the support groups, is that it normalizes those feelings. When you hear it coming, from 10 other members of the group, that they are having those same thoughts and emotions, it really helps to normalize that, and you gain comfort in that, obviously.
Right, and I'm glad you mentioned, because you're talking about being a facilitator, and I want to explain to people that maybe haven't ventured into a support group yet, that might be afraid to come to a support group. A lot of times just taking that first step of going into a room where they think the focus is going to be on them. And I
Right.
want them to know that obviously there's a lot of different types of support groups, and you have to find one that you feel comfortable in. But you're not going to point a finger at them and make them spill their guts if they don't want to, right?
Absolutely.
And the job of a facilitator like yourself is not to pretty much tell them things. It's basically to allow the other participants in the group time to share. So you're there
Yes.
to sort of just kind of manage the group,
Right.
and give them an opportunity to share and kind of elaborate a little bit on that.
That's perfect, though. You're right. It's not my time, it's their time. And, I've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I think an effective good facilitator is there to listen and, it's the participants' opportunity to share at that time.
And if someone doesn't care to share, it's okay
They
too.
don't have to, absolutely.
A lot of caregivers are afraid to talk about their personal feelings or personal situations, and I just want to let caregivers know that you can go to a support group and you don't have to say
You
one
don't
word.
have to say a word. You can just sit there and listen and learn. And we do have participants that do just that. They don't like to contribute by sharing, but they go to listen and learn, and that's wonderful.
And that's what we're talking about, is learning, being educated on what's going on so that you don't feel alone. And I think that's what the support group does. It lets others know that you're not alone. Other people are going through the same thing that you
Right.
are. And maybe not exactly in the same way like we mentioned before, because, I've always said you could have 100 people diagnosed with, Alzheimer's or some other dementia, and they're all going to be different in the way they behave, the way the symptoms come out, and it's all so different. And that's what makes this disease so insidious, because you don't know what to expect. So it's almost expect the unexpected, pretty much. Yeah. So how large are your support groups, and is there an ideal size? Can one be too small or too large, in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, I would say a good group dynamic would be anywhere from, 6 to 15 participants in that range. And typically, that seems to be our sweet spot at the facility, is our group sizes are typically between 6 to 15.
And why is that more ideal? I mean, what happens if it gets too big? Or
If it's too big, the time that we have, of course, is limited. Our particular support group sessions last an hour and a half, and they meet weekly, and a lot can happen in that 1 week period. And folks come in and have typically a lot that they like to share. And if the group is too large, then not everybody would have the opportunity to share.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So that's wonderful. Thank you for explaining that. We have so much more to talk about. We're going to be hearing from Barbara next about some ways that you can get your loved one into a day center. We're going to talk a little bit about, costs, in case you're interested about that. So you don't want to miss it. You want to make sure that you have a pen and pencil handy, because we're going to take a second commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to give you that toll-free number again to get that book that you'll want to order. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias, and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Lyda Carr and Barbara Curtis from the Lewis and Ann Green Memory and Wellness Center in Boca Raton, Florida. And we're talking about how we can help caregivers be better caregivers. And one way is a support group. And Lyda was just explaining about support groups, how they work, why they're important, what people can learn from them. And during the commercial break, Barbara made a great point, saying that it's not just a place for people to vent and tell your problems, but it's a great way to learn how to handle problems. So, Barbara, tell us what you were sharing during the commercial break.
Well, just a couple of examples. One, I had a caregiver, her mother was obsessed with the toilet. And at night, she'd constantly go in the toilet and stuff it with paper and flush it, and there'd be water on the floor, and it would always be a problem. So one of the other caregivers said, we just reached behind the toilet and turned the water off. And it's like, everybody went, really? And they're like, sure, and it helps, because then it wouldn't flush water all over. She thinks it's broken. She leaves it alone. And another where a woman was constantly still thinking she could cook, and they were worried about a fire or getting burned. So they flipped the circuit breaker for the stove, and it was just that easy. So people around the table went, wow, so it's an interesting thing that you never even thought of, and it's such a simple solution.
It doesn't have to be rocket science to figure some of these things out. It's just things that people have already experienced. It's like, aha, why didn't I think of that? Because you don't sometimes want to overthink it, because it can be a simple solution. So going to a support group and sharing and getting that information from other caregivers is a great way to solve a lot of the little caregiving issues that come up. And, there's big issues and little issues, and if you don't solve them, the little issues might become big issues. So it's important, right, to go and to get that information.
And one thing about the groups that we've had in the past, and I don't know if they still are, but we have people in all different stages of caregiving. So some people aren't even in the day center part yet. They haven't even gotten to that part. They're still trying to feel their way. Others are in the day center. Some, their loved one have moved to assisted living in the community, and others, their loved one may have passed. So they're helping each other along the way because they've been through the steps that maybe someone else is coming through, or they can prepare people for what's coming down the pike for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. And you mentioned, too, that there's different caregiving groups for not only the different stages of a caregiver, but for different stages of the person with the dementia, because, there's early stage dementia when they're young onset, and then there's the mid-level, and then there's the later level. So you address all of these different things in support groups?
We do. The support groups are not necessarily divided up according to the stage that the individual is in. It's more the caretaker's role. For example, I mentioned that we have an adult children's support group.
And they have different issues as an adult child than a spouse would have.
Very. It's that sandwich generation that we talk about. So the individual has, the demands of caregiving of the parent, and then oftentimes of their children as well. So they're really squeezed.
Yeah, and that's right. They're that sandwich generation because they're stuck in the middle.
Right.
And not only do they care for parents and maybe their own children, but they're also usually still working. They have a house, they have animals, they have obligations, they have responsibilities, and they're stressed out too, just because they're not living with mom or dad. They might even be an adult child that might live farther away, but it's still stressful for them because they're, needing still to deal with it and be involved, and it's not always easy.
Right.
Yeah.
The long distance caregiving presents a number of different stresses as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is one way for long distance caregivers to get the information because, of course, with this show, they can tune in via the internet and get information for your loved one no matter where you are, no matter where you live, because it's available online. Sure. And that's a good resource because, we're here, maybe your parents are here in South Florida, and we're here, so you can tune in and listen, and this is great for resources so that as an adult child, having a parent in South Florida, you're going to know that all these people are here to help you and to help your loved ones. And so I want to encourage people that when they see and hear someone on this program, we always give the information of how you can get in touch with them, and we want you to reach out and get that information. So we're going to be sharing a little bit later in the program how to reach Lida and how to reach Barbara. So that's great.
Now, with the long distance caregiving, if I could just add also, because we're talking about resources, I think one of the most important things a long-distance caregiver can do would be to consult with a geriatric care manager, because they are your eyes and ears locally. And they can, offer a number of different services to the caregiver, long-distance caregiver. They can attend, the doctor's visits with your loved one. They can help, identify people to help with legal issues, just, identifying local area resources. So that would be a great connection.
Yeah, good
for
point.
anyone doing long-distance caregiving. And the National Health Institute also has a terrific, it's an online brochure, or you could probably order it paper, that is specific to long-distance caregiving.
Yeah, different issues,
Yes.
but very important to find out about all these resources. So thank
National
you.
Health Institute.
Wonderful. Thank you for letting us know about that.
And the internet has opened up a lot of resources for people looking for aging services. One of the things, we are one of 15 memory disorder centers in the state of Florida. So those centers are a plethora of information. We have a resource library people can come to, and we can refer them to community resources in our area and all across the United States. There's area agency on aging, area-wide agency on aging. They have all different names, but there's so much more information available to people out there. And whether you use a service of somebody close to you or not, somebody should be able to connect you to find what you're looking for.
And it's interesting because all of us in the industry, we think there's, and know that there's so much information out there, but yet I still talk to caregivers all the time that say, how does somebody know where to go? How does somebody know how to get the information? And it is out there. You just need to dig a little bit, but there is a lot of information. So thank you for sharing that. Speaking of sharing, when people come to the Memory Center and they're have their loved one in your care, obviously this is a charge for this, right? Or is it actually supplemented by anything at all?
Well, it would depend on the facility. We are a private pay facility. People have a fee for service to come to our program. We also have a scholarship program to help subsidize fees if people have limited financial resources. But being in the industry for years, I know there are different funding sources out there. Some day centers are funded by religious organizations. The VA has funding for day centers, Medicaid waiver diversion programs. There's all different kind of buzzwords as far as government subsidized programs.
Right.
So when someone comes to me, I'm trying to meet the needs of that person.
Right.
I want the most deciding factor of where to take your loved one for whatever service is finding the right service. And obviously the finances are a part of it. So if finances are a concern for people, we might be able to help them with our scholarship that we have to make it more affordable for them, and or we might refer them to a place that's better suited because of the financial need is there. And sometimes it's a geographical location that's needed too. So in my facility, our fees are anywhere from about $12 an hour, and you can have a half day or a full day option. So, there are sliding fee scales in some of these programs, but even the private pay fee is really not that unaffordable in my mind, you know, because if you get a home health agency service, it's $15 to $20 for an hour, and you're not getting the group experience, the group activities, the music, the dancing, the exercise,
And you still
the
have
nursing.
the person in your home, and now you're stressing out because sometimes you not only have one person you're looking overseeing, but you have two people sometimes, and that
Yeah.
can be stressful too for a caregiver.
So in the mind of those
Yeah.
of us that provide the service, you know, I feel that it's a really affordable option for people. You know, a day center is keeping them in the community and then also allowing them, the caregiver, to do what they need to do.
Absolutely. I strongly urge caregivers to try a day center nearest you, anywhere that you are. Find one, check it out, because it is a wonderful option. And what about educating people in the community? I think that you have something going on with a new grant that maybe we could talk about. Can you share?
Yes, we have a new grant called Bridging the Gap, and that was an effort by our director to reach out into the community for people that are not coming to our center. So we know we have a wonderful program. The academic atmosphere has caused us to be very successful. Not only do we have a good program, but the academic atmosphere of the research and the training that a university brings. But there's still people out there we know that need us that are not coming to us for whatever reason. So we've partnered with some community organizations in some underserved areas, trying to go to people that are community-based, that might have moderate to more severe dementia issues for both the person and their loved one. With the dementia, the caregivers don't know where to go, or maybe they're not comfortable leaving the home. So we're going to some community-like locations as well as private homes, bringing our services to them.
Wow.
So as a memory disorder center, one of the things we have that we hadn't touched on is memory screening. So to get a comprehensive memory-focused evaluation, many times people know their loved one has a memory problem, and they've seen their primary physician, and you know, they've got doctors, but maybe they're not sure what the problem really is. So that's a service that a memory center will provide to them. So we are now setting ourselves up to go out into the community to provide that for people that might not be comfortable to come to a center. Maybe a cultural thing, it may be a location, maybe they're limited with their resources to get out of their homes, or they're not comfortable coming out of the home. So there's so many different reasons, but
You're right.
partnering with community service providers that identify people like that we can help is a very important aspect of this
Yeah,
grant.
that is great. I'm so glad that you have that grant and you're doing that, because it is such a needed service. And, you know, speaking about the memory screening, I think that a lot of caregivers that are caregivers, but they don't really want to accept that they're caregivers, and they put off with maybe getting that initial diagnosis or getting that screening, because maybe they think, hey, if I don't go to the doctor, if I don't go to the neurologist, and they don't actually tell me that this is what
Then I don't have it.
then we don't have to deal with it. You know, it's a little bit of that denial. And Lyda, you talked about guilt, and we talked about how caregivers feel guilty, but talk a little bit about denial.
Oh, boy.
And I'm sure you come across that too, because that's another one of those emotions.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you know, the denial thing is interesting because you see it on both sides, not just from the caregiver, but of course also, you know, the individual that may or may not have the diagnosis of, you know, some form of dementia. So the denial is totally understandable. You know, we don't want to go there. We don't want to face all that comes with the diagnosis. However, the earlier the person can come to a point of acceptance, the better.
Yes.
Because then you can reach out and get services that are needed, whether it be, you know, seeking out neurologists that can perhaps make an appropriate prescription that would go along with the diagnosis. Actually, you know, receiving the diagnosis, so you can plan more than anything.
There you go.
Right?
Once you know what you're dealing with, then
Absolutely.
you can make that plan. But it's interesting because, you know, and we've talked about this on other programs, but when someone has memory loss, it doesn't automatically mean they have Alzheimer's, because there's a lot of things that can cause memory loss, and some of it is reversible, actually. We talked about depression earlier and how severe depression can actually create people to have short-term memory loss. So sometimes it's not really that they have short-term memory loss or even mild cognitive impairment due to an Alzheimer's or a vascular dementia. It might just be something where they are so depressed that they've gotten into that funky mode where they can't remember things. And years and years ago, I had a case where a son from out of state thought his mom had Alzheimer's because she couldn't remember things and she couldn't function, and she couldn't take care of things in her own place. And the reason was because this poor woman had gone through so many life-changing situations in a short period of time that she was in a severe depression. And once that she got the proper medication and the proper psychotherapy with the right therapist, she was fine, and she actually came out of that. So that was a success story only because the son actually went ahead and did what he had to do to try to help and got to the right people. But don't assume anything, I guess is what I'm saying, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And you see that people sometimes wait too long even try to come to your services or to have our services because they do wait too long. And we want to make a plan, and that's the most important thing, I think, is make the plan. Even if you don't have to use it, even if you never execute it, you want to have a plan.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really important. So we're going to take our last commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some fun stuff that is happening down at the FAU Memory and Wellness Center. We'll be right back.
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know, we understand, we can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And we are back, and we're talking to Barbara and Lyda from the FAU Memory and Wellness Center here in Boca Raton, the wonderful center that gives great information and helps caregivers and gives support, and there's so many wonderful things to be said about it, and you guys are so wonderful to help the families. I know both of you are very passionate about what you do, and thank you for that, because this is what we do. We help caregivers no matter what they need. But let's talk about some fun stuff for a minute, because one of the things that I think caregivers sometimes feel guilty about, because we've been talking about feelings with our social worker here, Lyda, but they feel guilty if they have fun. and they feel guilty if they laugh, and they feel guilty if they have a sense of humor. But that is so important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to laugh, got to have some fun.
Yeah.
So I know there's a fun thing coming up that Barbara, I want you to talk about, and it's called Keep Memories Alive, and
Yes.
tell us about that.
Well, our Caring Hearts Auxiliary raises money for the center. It helps pay for the caregiver programs as well as scholarships and supplies for the Adult Day Center. So we're coming up on our 11th annual walk, and it's at the Town Center Mall here in Boca on Sunday, November the 6th. And literally hundreds of people come, 300 or 400 people. And the unique thing about this is it's inside the mall before the mall opens, so it's weather controlled, which is great. So if it's raining or it's hot, it doesn't matter. We're inside. It's air conditioned. So this year we have a theme of walking with the stars. So everyone who participates is being encouraged to dress in a costume, which is kind of with Halloween coming. It's not too bad, but to be dressed like maybe a recognizable movie star, a television star.
Yeah, the
So they
stars.
always have a different theme. So we usually have not only the staff, the volunteers, the families, some of the participants come, but they bring the children and the dogs and the strollers, and everyone has a nice time. But the funds go into our program to help pay for the services that we're providing.
I love it because I participated in the Keep Memories Alive walk, and I remember one year you had a 50s theme, and we had the poodle skirt and the bobby socks, and we had such a fun time, the ponytails, and
It's
it
lots of
was
fun.
it's a great event. It's a lot of fun, and what I especially like about it, not only that it's inside, but after the walk is over, you can stay and shop at the mall when the store's open. So
Double bonus.
so that's always a good thing, and it makes it fun. How does someone get involved with the walk? Is there a way they can register?
Yes. Well, they could call us and we could send them information. They can go to the website for the university. We have a link for it. Some people are sponsors, like a business might want to sponsor, have their team represent their company and help get exposure in that way. And then individuals can just send in donations. We have a team at the Memory and Wellness Center. So I've got people that are donating to the cause, whether they're going to walk with me or not. So every little bit helps. So we'll take any kind of contribution or involvement you want to be. You do not have to donate money if you just want to support the cause and be there in spirit and help. The more people, the better. It's really just a bonding whole event.
Yeah, it's great for caregivers to get together, and not only is it great to raise money and awareness, which is very important because you see all the people gathering at the mall, and you see them leaving, and all the people that are coming to the mall, they're wondering what's going on, what's happened here, and you get a little bit more of awareness that you can give out to the community and say, this is what we're doing. But one of the other great benefits that I want to tell you about is that you're walking. Okay, you are walking, and walking is good for your brain, and that is a great benefit because studies have shown that when you keep active, the more active you are, of course, you're pumping your blood, and the blood's going to your brain, and the blood's taking oxygen to your brain. You're getting that rejuvenation, and that's going to help keep your brain healthy. So we want to talk about keeping our brain healthy, and Lyda has something to share because you've got a new program you're going to be starting up about brain health, right? Tell us about that.
Well, currently we do have an existing program that's known as Mindset, and it's a terrific program. It's evidence-based, and it's designed for couples. So one member of the couple has a diagnosis of either mild cognitive impairment or early stage dementia, and they attend the educational sessions with a partner, whether it's their spouse or adult child, and the focus is in teaching compensatory skills to help with memory loss. So it's not to say that your memory will make your memory better or improved, but we will give you skills to help offset with that memory decline. Important skills such as organization, that's one of the focal points of it, focus and attention. So often we think that we forget things, right? Where we park the car, where we put our keys, and we kick ourselves.
I think everyone's done that, right?
Who hasn't, right? Who hasn't? We kick ourselves and say, I forgot again where I put my readers. But you have to stop and ask yourself, did you really forget versus were you paying focused attention when you put the item down or you parked your car? And there's a big difference there.
Yes. And you give these tips to the caregivers so that they, a lot of
Right.
caregivers are forgetting because they're so stressed out.
Absolutely.
And stress will cause you to forget. So if you
Absolutely.
can't remember where you put your keys or parked your car, don't automatically assume, that now you're getting
Yes.
dementia. The fact is you're probably so stressed out that it's just causing you not to pay attention and not focus. And so you're teaching these skills.
We're teaching those skills and developing new programs. And one of the programs that we're developing right now, I'm very excited about. I love all the things I do there, though. They're terrific. Upcoming program is designed for the individual because a mindset program is for the couple.
Okay.
So it's an individual, and it can be anybody that has a memory concern, not necessarily a diagnosis, or an individual that does have a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment. And so, that program, one of the programs would be an ongoing weekly program in which the individual comes in for socialization. Socialization is one of the most important brain activities that you can do, keep your brain healthy. So the emphasis on socialization and on brain games.
Yes.
So, and
Just
we will-
learning something new. Learning something new is key. If you can stretch your mind
Right.
and do something different, something new, you're going to create some new neurons in there and get your
Absolutely.
brain working better. That's, something that a lot of people say, well, I do the crossword puzzles. I'm really good at that. But if you're good at it, you're not challenging yourself.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And not only that, and don't stop doing the crosswords because that's a great thing, but it really just exercises a particular area of your brain.
Yes.
So the brain games that we will incorporate exercise all the different areas of your
That's a
brain.
great point.
Visual, spatial,
All of that. It's
all
it's
that
all
language.
It's all
Yes.
very, very important, and we are so excited that you provide all these services. Barbara, tell us how someone can contact you if they want more information.
Well, I think giving them the main phone number is best because
Okay.
there's such a different variety
Go
of
ahead.
places.
Okay.
561-297-0502. And then whatever service you're interested in, or if you don't know, just tell somebody and they put you through to someone to help you.
Wonderful. So take advantage, call Barbara, talk to Lyda, get the information you need because it's so valuable and it's great. So join us next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, give someone a hug because they need it and so do you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.